I'm delighted to welcome to the show right now Sir Malcolm Rifkind, a former Foreign and Defence Secretary under the Conservatives. A very good morning to you, Sir Malcolm.
Thank you very much.
Lots to talk about. First up, let's talk about what's going on in Iran. We had protests. I believe, at the minimum 500 protesters killed. Many are saying it may well be in the thousands. People saying they need help to get the internet back working so they can communicate. Donald Trump had promised that he was going to help the protesters if the Iranian regime in Tehran started shooting them. Well, they've been doing that en masse. Should Donald Trump act? What should he do? And should we get involved?
Well, I think it's very likely that he will respond, and the only way he can respond is by air attacks on various parts of Iran. He's not going to send in combat troops. He's not going to use his naval power. It's eventually going to be to bomb some either military bases or other strategic buildings. Will that have much impact? Not in the short term, it won't, because the regime is desperate to retain its existence as a regime. They have to crush these protests, and they will swallow hard if the Americans attack them. But what we are seeing is this is the last phase of the Islamic Revolution. They can stop this particular uprising, but they've not got anything left unless they totally reform their own internal structures.
But as we've often seen with these regimes, if they sort of give an inch, then the whole edifice collapses. Are you convinced we are in the end game of this? And how much of that is down to, for instance, Israeli and US airstrikes in the last year?
Well, no, if it was up to the Iranian people, yes, this is the death throes of the Islamic Republic, so-called. But these things can sometimes be delayed several years if the regime in question is sufficiently ruthless. Now, when it comes to the United States have already shown that they have power in relation to Iran that no one else has. When they, for example, sent a chunk of their air force right across the Atlantic to bomb the nuclear program of Iran. And they did that superbly well. Somebody has once remarked that America is not just a superpower, it's a super duper power. And it's the only one that there actually is. I mean, Russia, China, no other country could remotely compare with their military capabilities. So they can do a hell of a lot. Will they try and take out the supreme leader? I mean, having grabbed Maduro, I should imagine Khamenei, the supreme leader, is very, very nervous, and he will not be in the same building every evening. Yep. He'll probably be in a taxi at the moment, going between various so-called safe houses.
Yeah. And indeed, I was wondering how much what had happened in Venezuela. I mean, again, we're only on the 12th day of January, and there's already been quite a lot happening in international affairs, but how much of impact that would have. And it is interesting also, we know, extraordinary intelligence that the Israelis have, and Mossad has, having what they've done in Iran, the extraordinary attacks that they took out in Iran in terms of completely undermining their ability to wage war against Israel. Should we be concerned about threats from Khamenei's regime to the Americans in retaliation for any action? Or, as one of my callers just asked about, what about retaliation against us, whether it's sleeper terror cells or whatever? Should we be concerned about that?
Well, obviously concerned, yes, but there's not a huge amount the Iranians can do militarily. The United States is dramatically more powerful than they are, as are the Israelis. And these are the two potential targets. But in addition to that, what we're really talking about is how Iran is going to survive if it manages successfully to suppress these protests. And I think by sheer brute force, that is, I hate to say it, but I think that's more likely than not over the next week or so. Then the Iranian regime has to decide, is it capable of reforming itself to meet the desperate problems of the people? And there's a link between this and their foreign policy. One of the things that has really made the Iranian public completely fed up with the regime is that the state of their economy is partly because huge resources have been spent by the Iranian regime over years to attack Israel, or to spread Iran's foreign policy control in Syria or Lebanon or with Hezbollah or whatever. That all costs huge sums of money that could have been spent on the economy. So the Iranian public is saying, what on earth are we doing this for? Why should Israel be our enemy? And it's worth remembering, when the Shah was in power, Iran actually supplied Israel with its petroleum requirements at that time. They had a perfectly good relationship because they had no obvious reason not to have.
Yeah, and it is really interesting, isn't it, how much the economy has been a catalyst with this spiralling inflation and just basic inability for the country to function at any level right now.
Well, can I just come in on that? It's also, of course, the effect of existing mainly US sanctions, because the main wealth that Iran has is its oil and gas. But they've only been able to actually export a fraction of what they would otherwise have available. And even what they've exported has been discounted because the people buying saying, we know you're finding it difficult to find buyers, we'll buy it, but only if you reduce the price further. So the sanctions that the Americans can enforce have had a huge impact, continuing impact. Not just on the regime, but on the economy as a whole. And so all these issues are tied together. And it's interesting, there are reports today saying the Iranian regime are asking for immediate talks with the White House. Now, got to be careful about that. That could be just to buy time.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean they're willing to genuinely negotiate. Or it may mean they want to know what the American price would be. As we saw in Venezuela, Trump can sometimes surprise us. The regime continues without Maduro. Because they have been prepared to make major compromises to the US government in terms of requirements. So
but it is also interesting
like
that the Crown Prince, who's been sort of calling on people on social media, the son of the Shah, exiled in 1979, has been calling on people who are parts of the regime, parts of even the IRGC, the Iranian, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. So if you want to defect, here it's bizarre how you're talking about sort of absolute mad mullahs, but also you've got a code. Look at the QR code and register to say you want to defect. The meeting of modern technology and these age-old issues. What do you make of the IRGC though, and then being sent onto the streets of Tehran?
Well, that's what they're there for.
But
they're there.
Yeah, but crucially also, what about the demands back here in the UK that we should proscribe this organisation? Would that change anything whatsoever?
Nothing remotely would it change, because remember, the IRGC isn't a separate organisation. It's part of the Iranian regime. The organizations you sometimes declare to be a terrorist organization are organizations that are the terrorist groups or people behaving in a terrorist way. When you're dealing with a government whom you already deal with as if they're terrorists, because that's what they are, the IRGC is just part of that. Just one remark, if I may, about Crown Prince Reza Pahlavi. He's a brave man and he is offering leadership at the moment, but I wouldn't overestimate what he can do.
No.
One of the great problems of the Iranian opposition is the regime have been successful in preventing any alternative anti-regime organization developing within Iran.
Yeah.
There's no obvious leadership. There are no people we can point to and say, there is a potential new leader. And so Reza Pahlavi, the son of the Shah, in a sense is filling that gap. But I think he knows as well as anyone, the vast majority of Iranians weren't even born when the Shah abdicated. Almost 40 years ago.
Yeah.
And therefore, he's not going to be a major factor unless something very strange happens.
No, he was just talking about him being an interim figure. Let's talk about other issues. Talk of Britain being among the government, the government sending troops to Greenland to basically help protect parts of the Arctic that are under threat. Trump claims from China and from Russia. Is that likely to happen, and is that a good use of our resources?
Well, let's take them one by one. Is it likely that Britain is going to be sending troops to Greenland? No, it is not, and nor is France or Germany or any other country. That would be absurd. What are they going to be there to do? To fight the United States if the United States send the Marines in? We all know the issue is not a military one in relation to Greenland. Greenland has no army. The United States could occupy Greenland in 24 hours, probably without a shot being fired. That is not the issue.
Yeah.
The issue is whether the so-called leader of the free world that has totally campaigned against Putin's Russia on the grounds that you cannot annex other countries' territory just because you feel like it. It's going to break its own rules. It's going to act in a way that no American government has thought of doing. And the reason is primarily, I hate to say this, it's got nothing to do ultimately with resources or political strategy. It is Trump's ego. The history of the United States in the 19th century was various presidents expanding the territory of the United States. So they got Florida from Spain, they got Louisiana from the French, and eventually they got the Russians to sell them Alaska. Trump wants to be the president who expanded the territory of the United States in this century, in his presidency. And I'm afraid it's as pathetic as that.
Well, I mean, you say that, but I mean, everyone says it's not for sale. But he did manage to purchase all those large tracts of land. Just finally, can we talk about the fate of the Conservative Party? You were a former senior cabinet minister of the Conservative Party. There's another former senior cabinet minister, Nadhim Zahawi. He was Chancellor. He was a cabinet office minister. He was also, of course, party chairman for a period of time. Nadhim Zahawi has defected to Reform. He said he's made his mind up. He says Farage can deliver for Britain. Our wonderful country is sick, he says. He's doing a press conference right now with Nigel Farage in central London. What do you make of the stream now of prominent Conservatives, including those who were cabinet ministers in the last few years under the Tories, joining reform?
Well, allow me, without being unfair, to comment. Yes, Nadhim Zahawi was Chancellor. I think he was Chancellor for 8 weeks.
Is it that long?
Yes, well, it felt longer, you're right. So it's really, he's in Liz Truss type territory in terms of that. But he is a senior figure. Having made my little dig at him, he is a senior figure. One has to ask why he's doing it. And frankly, it's opportunism, as it is for so many others. They know that barring miracles, they're not going to be in government under a Conservative Prime Minister for the next few years, and reform suddenly opens a theoretical possibility that all the world could be changed by Nigel Farage. Now, you've got to look at what Farage stands for. He's got one issue which carries a lot of weight with the public, and that's immigration. If that issue is resolved, and it's a big if,
it's not going to be.
If it's resolved satisfactorily over the next 2 or 3 years by the current government, whoever is Prime Minister, what else does Farage actually have to offer? He tried to pretend he had a policy of reducing taxes, and he had to he literally abandoned his economic policy a couple of months after he first announced it. So the Conservative Party actually should be grateful to Rachel Reeves. What she achieved in her last budget, no, seriously, what she achieved in her last budget, up till then, people could either believe or be told that we still had New Labour created by Tony Blair that keeps your taxes down and all that kind of thing. That budget demonstrated that Labour had reverted to pre-Blair, which is high tax in order to fund high welfare. And the Conservative Party is the only credible party, as it always has been, for those who wish to reduce the tax.
No chance of you defecting then?
In which direction did you have in mind?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, a lot of people might be saying, yeah, you could probably be perfectly happy in the Lib Dems.
Well, no, who could be happy in the Lib Dems? Crying out loud.
They don't look that happy, to be fair.
If I may say so, this is humour of a very poor taste.
So no
somebody once remarked, they're a very centrist party, the Lib Dems. Somebody once remarked that if Christopher Columbus had been a Liberal Democrat, he would probably have discovered the mid-Atlantic.
So Malcolm Rifkind, absolute pleasure. Thank you very much. I think we can safely say we are not going to be getting a press conference in the coming months where Sir Malcolm Rifkind, former Defence and Foreign Secretary, defects to reform. Just your response to that particular issue, Benedict Spence.
Well, Columbus discovering the Mid-Atlantic.
No, because I bet you could actually talk for 10 minutes about that.
Sadly, yes. Zahawi's defection, you mean.
But the opportunism, he's saying.
Oh, of course. I think that's accurate, and I think that's what a lot of this is. I think that, whereas...
Isn't all politics opportunism?
Of course, a lot of it is. But I think that the sad thing is that there were once, I think, you'd look at the Conservative Party and even the Labour Party, and you'd look at them and say that there were politicians there of substance and principle. And the problem is now, when you're looking for defectors, that sort of thing is really thin on the ground. And, I mentioned Danny Kruger earlier. He's a sort of a lone figure in that actually a lot of people, even though he was not particularly high profile, a lot of people who knew him said, well, there's somebody who thinks he's a good constituency MP and he thinks about issues of a broader magnitude. But if we're being honest, a lot of the other ones are simply there because I think, and I suspect someone from Rifkind agrees with me, they quite like being on the airwaves, front page. They like people listening to what they have to say. I tell you what's interesting to Nadhim Zahawi,
because he is a self-made multi-millionaire. There's an element where some of them...
That got him into a lot of trouble.
Yes, some of them, he's an HMRC, a facts investigation that he did not declare. He was breached 7 breaches of the cabinet minister rules, basically, and was sacked by I lose track. Rishi Sunak, probably.
Somebody,
one of the many prime ministers we had in that period. But genuinely, it's he unlike a lot of them who literally desperately just wanted to have a job. He doesn't need to. So but anyway, a lot of them like the power. They like, as you say, they like the glory.
What I would say, he's a very good media communicator.
He's a fantastic media communicator.
He would be useful to them in that capacity.
Absolutely.